Got it. We are now streaming live. Welcome, everybody. It's another Thursday, 4 p.m. Arizona time. This is a good Thursday, though, because football starts. College football started last week. Now NFL starts today, and it's like there's football every day of the week except like Tuesday and Wednesday.
And then people like me, I have Champions League and Europa League soccer, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Love it.
And so I just finished watching my Arsenal game here today about 2 or 3 hours ago. So
love it.
This is the best time of year,
man. Good time of year. Absolutely. Something though, last week after we got done with the call, I went and watched this documentary on Netflix called it's the Tim Donaghy called Operation Flagrant Foul. I never wanted, after that I was like, dude, I don't want to watch professional sports at all. Like any professional sports, I'm just going to stick to college, because after watching that documentary, it's clear everything is rigged.
Yeah. Well, but it's not going to take long for college to get to that point now with NIL agreements and kids getting paid that. And there's with sports betting and with the money that's on the line with college sports too, man, it's no longer amateur athletics like they want to say it is,
Kind of sad. But anyways, we're not here to talk about sports because Chase and I don't know much about sports. That's why we're in the business we're in, and why we're not rich millionaires playing sports
or talking about sports on the radio.
Exactly. What we are going to talk about today is very interesting. I think for all of you watching, it can be helpful. But we are going to talk about a story that happened here locally in Arizona with an individual who had his home insurance claim denied until he got to 3 on Your Side. 3 TV is a news station here in Arizona. They do like On Your Side. If you've been wronged, you can go to them and they'll help fight it. So this individual went to 3 on Your Side and was able to get it resolved. I'm going to give a quick, brief summary of what happened, and then we'll jump into it, Chase, and break it down. So this individual, he lives part-time here in Phoenix and then part-time in another state. He has a neighbor that has watched his house during the times he's gone. He's watched his house for the past 9 years. Well, one of these times, just a month or so ago, he was gone out of town and his neighbor called him and said, "Hey, I see water running out of your house," which is like cause for concern right away. That would freak me out. So anyways, his neighbor went, turned off the water. This guy flew into town. Come to find out, his toilet, something cracked his toilet when he was gone, and the water was just leaking out continuously for who knows how long. It had to have been a long time if it was coming out of his house through the doors. So he was like, "Oh, well, great. I've had State Farm insurance for almost 30 years. I think since like 1994. I've had State Farm insurance. I'm a loyal customer. They're going to take care of me." Well, they weren't such a great neighbor. His actual neighbor that caught the water is a good neighbor. State Farm, not so much a good neighbor. They said, "Nope, we are not going to cover it because we don't know how the crack originated. We don't know if it was sudden and accidental. We're not going to cover it." And so long story short, he had to get 3 on Your Side involved. State Farm sees a negative publicity and they say, "Oh, did we say it wasn't covered? It's actually covered." So long story short, that's what happened. I want to introduce one point, and then Chase, I know you're just dying to jump in here and talk about this. So last week, we talked about the purpose of insurance is to insure. We were trying to encourage people that when necessary, use your insurance. But we also talked about how a lot of times insurance companies don't understand this either, that the point of insurance is to insure. State Farm, in this case, did not understand that, because instead of looking for ways that the policy would cover the damage, they went and looked for anything they could find to not cover the damage. And so that's where we ran into the problem. So I have a lot more to say on it, but Chase, jump in and let's hear it.
Man, I could say a lot of stuff on it too, but for me, the 2 things that stick out in this situation are, one, it doesn't matter how long you've been a customer to an insurance company. They don't care. When a claim happens, they're not going to say, "Well, benefit of the doubt. You've been with us for nearly 30 years. We're going to cover it. No, it for them is black and white. Okay. If it's in the policy as an exclusion, we're not going to pay for it. So you can't fall back on the values of, well, I've been with them forever, so they'll be good by me. No. Yep. If the contract language says that it's covered or not, boom, that's it. Doesn't matter how long, if you've been with them for a day or 30 years. Good point. The other point that sticks out to me in this is State Farm didn't investigate what was going on. They can't just say, oh, well, we don't know how the toilet cracked, and so we're not going to cover it. That's not good enough. And when an insurance company gives a denial like that to you, always ask them, what is their authority? Okay, don't just accept the denial. They say, well, it's not covered under your policy. Always ask why. Like, what authority are you using to say that this isn't covered? Like in this situation, when they say, well, we don't know where the crack came from, that doesn't exclude them from coverage. It means they need to find out why. And if they go in and to find out that, oh, it was cracked because of this, I looking through a homeowner's policy, it talked about how a sinkhole wouldn't be covered with homeowners policy because it's a kind of a natural type situation. And so if a sinkhole happened and then there is this damage, maybe that would be something that wouldn't be covered. You'd have to get into the weeds on the policy, but they can't just make the assumption, well, it's cracked, and so we don't know how it got cracked, so we're not going to cover it. No, that's not good enough. And so the best thing that you can always do when any insurance company, whether it's homeowners, auto, or any other kind of insurance out there, ask them, what is your authority? Where are you getting your authority to deny this claim, and get it in writing? Because they know that they can be held responsible if they do a denial and it's not done in good faith. If they're just doing anything they can to avoid it, then that's where they're going to really get hurt later on.
Got it. So just to make sure I understand, so let's say you have a claim, something similar to this scenario, the claims adjuster comes back and says, sorry, this isn't covered. What you're saying is you don't have to take that as doctrine, like, oh, they said it's not covered, it's not covered. But what needs to happen is you need to say, show me in my policy exactly where it says this is not covered.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. If you get that from them and they say it's not covered because here's what your language says into this matter, and under this provision, we do not cover it, then fine. Okay. That's what you signed up for. And that's why you and I have talked about making sure that you just don't buy boilerplate insurance policies. You got to make sure that they're taking care of your unique situation. But if they don't cite to that, then it's very flimsy. I've come across too many experiences where insurance companies will deny something. And then when I ask them, okay, what's your authority? Mm-hmm. They don't give that to me. And next thing you know, oh, wait, it actually is covered.
Got it. And I want to be clear, in all these videos, I know there may be some people that come back on me as an insurance agent and say, well, why are you trying to get something covered that shouldn't be covered? That's not what Chase and I are saying. We're saying, hey, again, the purpose of insurance is to insure. So you have that policy contract. And if the language clearly states this is not covered, that's fine. Chase and I aren't saying you need to do whatever you can do to get it covered. If it's not covered, it's not covered. However, we need to keep these insurance companies honest to make sure that if there is coverage in the policy language, it needs to be covered.
And that's a situation that I run into a lot when people will consult with me, like in the earlier video that we did about the young man that you write the insurance for, that he was driving a car for Uber or for one of those companies and got in an accident. He was at fault and had collision coverage, but he didn't have the add-on for driving for Uber. Next thing you know, he's out of it. I'll get people to consult with me and say, hey, how can I work around this? I say, well, you can't.
Yeah.
This is part of your policy. So yeah, it's not a matter of trying to work the system or game the policy to get coverage on things that shouldn't be covered. No. And that's why it's important to talk with a good insurance agent to explain your situation so that there aren't things in a policy that are going to come back to hurt you, so that you can add the type of coverage that you need. But it's one thing to have an insurance company say, you're not covered because of X, Y, and Z. Here it is in your policy. Okay. darn it, that's too bad.
Yep.
But if they can't cite to you the reason why, then that's not good enough. They should always be able to put in writing where they're getting the authority to deny it.
Got it. So that's one big takeaway for everybody. If you ever get denied a claim, don't just take a phone call or email saying this is not covered. Don't take that. You want the actual policy language. You want the authority, why they can actually deny that claim. So I want to talk about two things in particular about this specific story because I think it's necessary for everybody to know. The first thing is this individual, this was kind of like his secondary home. If you have a secondary home, let's say you're only living there 3, 4, 5, 6 months out of the year, you need to make sure that your insurance company knows that, because there are exclusions in most every single home insurance policy that said, hey, if you are only living here part-time, or if you're only living here a certain amount of time during the year, then this and this and this is going to be excluded. However, you can fix that by letting your insurance company know. Usually they can add an endorsement or get you the right type of policy to where when something happens, those things aren't excluded. So that's tip number one. I wanted to let everybody know. If you're not living there full time, let your insurance company know.
It's the same situation as we talked about driving for Uber and doing those things, is that if it's not a traditional housing situation, or if you're using your car for something other than just personal transportation, you've got to let your insurance agent know so that he can make sure that the coverages don't fall through in that situation. Because you got to look at it, the point of the insurance company is they're looking at insuring somebody's house that's their primary residence. If it's not your primary residence, then there are things that can happen, like a slow leak or something that could damage the house significantly, where if you're living there, every day of the year, you'll see that before the damage gets that much bigger.
Absolutely. And then the second thing, so I'm going to post the article down below. You guys can all click on it and read it. This isn't the second thing. This is a little tangent. It says they denied his flood claim. This actually wasn't a flood. In insurance terms, flood means surface water, meaning water on the ground coming from the outside in. When pipes burst or toilets overflow or things to that nature in your home, that's not considered a flood. That's just a leak that causes water damage. So that's my tangent. But the whole reason that State Farm gave for denying it is they're trying to say that this is something that was not sudden and accidental. Rather, it was something that occurred slowly over time. And that's how a lot of insurance contracts are written. They want to cover things that are sudden and accidental. So an example, your air conditioning is 25 years old. You haven't given it the proper maintenance and it just breaks down because it's old and you haven't given it the proper maintenance. That is not sudden and accidental. Insurance is not going to cover that. Now, let's say a storm comes through, knocks down a tree falls on your air conditioning and completely breaks it. That is sudden and accidental, and that is your property that's going to be covered under your home insurance policy. Insurance companies, they write this language into their contracts because, again, they're not a home warranty company. They're not wanting to cover things that you should take care of through general maintenance. So that's what they were trying to cite, and I think it's important for everybody to know that. Normal maintenance things like an old roof that's 50 years old and you haven't updated and now suddenly it's leaking. Okay, well, you just need a new roof. That wasn't sudden and accidental. But in this case, there was a crack. Most of the time in these, what are they, like porcelain toilets? You're not going to have a crack that slowly gets bigger. Most of the time, something's going to happen that's going to crack it. And so that's what they were trying to say. And that's where I think, and you mentioned this, Chase, they didn't do the investigation. They just right away just happened slowly. This happened over time. So we're going to deny it. I don't think that was the right way to go.
It's the same thing. Again, where's the authority? And if you're citing that under the policy that, well, this developed over time and was slow as opposed to an accident or sudden, then you just go back to them. Okay, where's your authority on that? Okay. Yep. Are you going to have an expert who's going to say, yes, this type of crack that occurred in the toilet is something that happens with time? I doubt they're going to find somebody like that because, again, like a toilet's not going to just crack like that over time. It's going to be something that is sudden or unexpected that should be covered in this type of policy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really it. I would say, honestly, the main takeaway of this, and I don't want to toot my own horn. So I'm not saying directly about us.
I'll toot it for you, dude. I'll do it for you. Michael's good. He'll take care of you.
But this just highlights the importance of, and I also don't want to sound like the old man that's like, don't use the internet to buy your insurance, but there's a purpose. A lot of times people will say, well, what's the point of having an agent, or what's the point of having a broker? I can just go online and buy it and it's so much easier. Yes, I understand it's easier to do it, but there is an actual point to having an agent and having a broker. And that's because they can be your advocate. They can help you. They can let you know what's in the policy. When you get that denial from the insurance company, you can consult with them when they say, hey, your policy says this and this and this is not covered. You can sit down with your broker and you can go through that, and then you can refute that and try to get coverage. Whereas if you go to a Geico or a State Farm, that these big companies, basically you're on your own unless you call 3 on your side, or of course, Chase, you're always here to help. But that's the whole point of having an agent and a broker. They're not just there to take your money, but they're there to actually help you when situations like this arise.
It's the same as trying to do anything on your own if you aren't experienced in it. I can, go do the electrical work at my house to do whatever, or I can install a new AC unit and Google how to do it, but I'm probably going to not do as good of a job, or I'm not going to know about these little ins and outs about it. And so where if something goes wrong, well, I'm on the hook for it now, or I wasn't aware of this contingency. It's the same thing I talk to with clients when it comes to the legal side of things is, yeah, you can Google how to do certain things on the law side, but when you don't do this every day, you don't see the little games that the insurance companies play, and you don't know the ins and outs of the laws of what you're entitled to. Again, it's not about getting things above and beyond what is allowed. It's getting compensation through what the law allows in our state, or what is permitted to be applied through a contract that you have with an insurance agent. And so when you get somebody who knows what they're doing, then they can identify the areas that you need that are different, that isn't taken into consideration when you fill out a 5-minute form online and they just want your address, phone number, and how many people live in your house. Absolutely. They're not going to ask you if you live there part-time. They're not going to ask you about if you're in a flood area. They're not going to ask if you drive for Uber. It's stuff that you've got to have someone who really knows the policies to make sure that you're covered.
Exactly. And one thing I want to ask you, Chase, and I think I know the answer, but a lot of times people think, and I've heard this, so we're a brokerage, so we deal with a number of different companies. And sometimes we represent companies and prospective clients are like, who's that company? I don't know them. I don't want to go with them. And so I think this idea is out there, like, I only want to go with companies that I see on TV, like Geico, State Farm, Liberty Mutual, because obviously they're going to take care of me because I see them blasted everywhere. And so there's hesitancy to go with these smaller, less known companies. But I want to ask you, when you fight these companies, who are you fighting most of the time? Who gives you the hardest time most of the time?
So the way I put it is, the more you see an insurance company advertising and spending money on arena naming rights or TV commercials, they're using the money that should be being paid on claims to pay for the advertising, and are charging more to cover their advertising budgets. So the smaller companies are going to be more personable, more personal touch, kind of like what you and I can do in providing our services, is that they're going to be more hands-on. They're going to be more involved in your situation versus just a boilerplate type of coverage. And whether or not they're big or small, in the end, it's not going to affect you in that, well, what happens if the company goes belly up? In Arizona, again, I can only speak for Arizona, but I'm sure this applies throughout the country. There are programs to protect you if an insurance company does go belly up and you've got a claim to make. And so if you are making a claim and all of a sudden your insurance company goes bankrupt, it then falls to an agency within the state who is going to make sure that you're taken care of. I run into this quite a few times on car accidents where somebody's been injured and is getting treatment, but then the insurance company that was covering the car that was at fault goes into, it's called receivership. Well, the state steps in. It's called this surety fund that insurance companies have to pay into to be licensed here in this state to give policy. So it builds up. And then if a company goes under, then there's money there to take care of you. So the size I wouldn't look at it in that regard. The size isn't going to matter for how well they're going to take care of you or if they're going to be solvent or whatever. What's going to matter is having someone explaining the policy and making sure that you're covered for the specific needs and not getting just a very boilerplate policy.
Perfect. Perfect. I thought that was the answer, but I wanted to ask anyway. Makes sense. Awesome. So that's that. And Chase, I'm sure that the answer again is yes. If someone is having an issue and they need someone to look over the policy language and help them with the claim that's being denied that they don't think should be denied, I'm sure you're willing and able to help them.
Always. I again, this is the kind of stuff that I nerd over, is because every word means something. Every place that there's a word, there are specific reasons why they use that word. And so I love poring over it to figure out exactly why they framed it that way and whether or not there's coverage. And there is a claim when your own insurance is denying it and they don't have good reason for doing it. It's called a bad faith claim that you can make against your own insurance company. You never want to throw out that language to the insurance company, because that, again, that's making assumptions that they are treating you poorly. But if you get things in writing and they're still denying it and it doesn't seem right, well, don't just take it as that. You can consult with an attorney and they can tell you, well, yeah, something doesn't seem quite right. And if they really have denied you in bad faith, and it's not even bad faith, it's the standard that these insurance companies have to treat you with. It's called, they have to treat you in good faith and fair dealing. Okay. And so they've got to give you basically the benefit of the doubt. And if they're not treating you like that, there are penalties because you're paying them money every month to have this coverage. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy to look over those policies and I'll tell you straight up, yeah, look, this is an exclusion. Sorry, I can't do anything. Or it's borderline, and I don't know if, you know, if it's going to cost more for me to be involved than what you're going to get out of it, then I'm not going to have you sign up or go with me, but we can at least point you in the right direction of what your options are.
Perfect. Perfect. Good to know. So 2 main points. Again, Chase, you're going to get tired of me saying this. The purpose of insurance is to insure, and don't take just a straight up call saying, hey, your claim is denied as doctrine. Get the actual policy language in writing to where it's denied. That will probably save a lot of people a lot of claims being denied.
Yes, I will never get bored of saying that, because I wholeheartedly agree. That's why we buy insurance. And so when it actually is time to use it, use it. Yep. Okay. And if you're not covered, darn, but make sure, talk to someone like you to make sure that there aren't situations where you won't be covered. But if you're denied, don't take it as gospel. Don't take their word for it. Ask for their authority. Otherwise, it's not going to be legit enough.
Yep. Love it. Love it. Cool. Well, everyone that has watched and that's going to watch, I know all the masses are going to come and watch this. Thank you. We hope this was informative and of value. And I'll even go so far to say this. If you're watching, subscribe, like, but also we want to talk about things that are of interest to you and helpful to you. Leave a comment below and say, hey, talk about this. Chase and I would love to talk about it. So Chase, as always, thanks for being